call this meeting to order. So welcome. I'd like to call the April 15th, 2021 regular meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission to order at 6 p.m. or actually 6:02. Please turn off your cell phones or set them to vibrate. And please also mute your microphone unless you're speaking. Agendas for this meeting are available online. Number 2 is roll call. Let the record reflect that all 5 planning commissioners are present. Number 3, we begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It'll be so much better when we're back in person. I think everybody would agree. Let's see. So now it's time for any announcements. And the one question that's hot on my mind is Roy, is there any announcement of a timeline for being back in person or being able to meet as a commission back in City Hall? Or is that later in our agenda?
That was one of the items that I was going to report out as part of my.
Okay, I'll wait for that then. With that, we're still meeting virtually, so we continue with special arrangements for tonight's Planning Commission meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Pursuant to State of California Executive Order N-29-20 and the amended County Health Order dated March 18th, 2020, which limits gatherings to no more than 10 people, members of the public will only be allowed to participate in meetings electronically. Tonight's meeting can be accessed and watched at the city's live webcast feed at https://encinitas.gov/government/agendas-webcasts. Normally, the Planning Commission is also available for viewing on Channel 19 of Cox Communications, Channel 24 of Time Warner Cable, and Channel 99 on AT&T U-verse. Unfortunately, again tonight, Cox, Spectrum, and AT&T U-verse are unavailable due to ongoing broadcast room renovations at City Hall. Public comments must be submitted via email. Tonight's agenda describes the process in detail, but I'll summarize it. Written public comments to the Planning Commission must be submitted via email by 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting and will be forwarded to the entire Planning Commission. To make oral public comments during the meeting, including oral communications, consent calendar, and regular items, you must register by 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting and join the electronic meeting. Members of the public speaking to the commission will not be shown on video. They will be able to watch and listen and to speak when called upon. Each speaker may address the commission for up to 3 minutes or in accordance with the time period established by the chair. The next item is oral communications. We start each meeting with oral communications where anyone wishing to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda may request to do so by following the process previously described. Dina, do we have any oral comments?
Yes, we do. We have 2 speakers this evening.
Okay.
All right, first is Cindy Cremona.
Thank you. Planning Chair Ehlers and Commission members, this is Cindy Cremona, resident of Encinitas and member of Encinitas Viewpoint. I encourage your yes vote to increase our inclusionary housing requirement from 15 to 50%. I applaud you for your efforts to preserve the character of Encinitas and for doing the right thing. The damage from the attempt this week to pull this item off of the agenda would not have been known if it were not for Susan Turney detecting the subterfuge on the city agenda. Due to the efforts of alert and concerned citizens, it's back on the agenda in May. This is a win for us all. Please continue to stay the course and continue to do the right thing for the citizens of Encinitas. Despite opposition and political will, residents prefer to preserve the quality of life and the environment we live and work here. Excuse me, and the environment we live and work here for. Appreciate your efforts and thank you so much.
Okay, and I take it that was really a comment for agenda item 6C. I think that's what it pertained to. So regardless, we heard it, so that's good. So
And I'm sorry, we had 3 total. I'm sorry, originally I said 2. So our next speaker is Gerald Kessler.
Go to attendees.
Oh, wow.
Right there.
Cheryl, can you hear us?
More. Then promote the panelist. There you go.
Is that you speaking, Gerald? We're not sure.
Yes, I'm trying to speak. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm just gonna say what I said last night, if that's okay. Again, I would like to discuss the housing element that was approved last week with no regard for the people of Encinitas. I'm very new at all this housing cluster, but what I can see is that if you got sued by the state a few years back because you weren't in compliance with the housing rules, at that time, why didn't they seek help and mediation from residents who are directly impacted to assist with the housing issues you were faced with? I just don't know why they didn't ask for help. Anyway, you and staff are able to make residents aware of things during their election with the tons of the robocalls and the onslaught of mailers that fill the landfills. So why didn't the council make the public more aware of in this type of manner? But now you are forcing Encinitas to become a concrete jungle with the state mandate madness. I don't understand how the council, how they did this. There's no green housing or any mention of the carbon footprint in any of these housing conundrums. This brings me to the environmental nightmare of that Staver housing project on Melba that plans to put up 30+ houses on the narrow street that feeds 5 schools, and traffic is already a nightmare during school session. This is also going to take down a grove of Torrey pines near the beautiful frontage area along Melba and demolish a historical home that was built in 1938. This is the last bit of old Encinitas we have in our neighborhood. It brings such joy to all that pass by it. This project hydrology report is not accurate, does not have any idea on how to deal with the runoff, and will be flooding the neighborhood with toxins from the prior pesticides that were used in the Staver flower business for years. I just encourage you to take a closer look at these projects that you have already approved and examine the environmental nightmare impact it's placing upon their small, quaint community. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and our third speaker for oral communication is Kathleen Lindeman.
You're on mute, Kathleen. There you go. You're back on mute. We're not hearing you if you're speaking. Kathleen?
She must not be editor.
No, it flashed off mute momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kathleen, can you hear us? Because we cannot hear you. Yeah, I don't know if she can hear it. I saw it went off mute for just a moment, then went right back on. So I don't know if she's speaking now and not looking down to see, basically give her the international sign for we can't hear if you can see us.
I have a button here that says ask to unmute, and I've clicked it a couple times, but that doesn't seem to.
Yeah, it would go on her side, but she must be away or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it moves her over. So when you do that, it moves her from participants to panelists.
Yeah. I don't know how to signal her. give her another
Yeah.
half a minute or so just to see. Kathleen, we cannot hear you if you can hear us.
Maybe put a note on a piece of paper.
We'll work through it.
Sometimes the simplest way, huh?
She should be able to hear
Hear
us.
us, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just got an email from Kathleen and she doesn't wish to speak on oral communications, just watch the meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So that concludes our oral communications. Okay, the next item is item 5, changes to the agenda. Are there changes to the published agenda?
There are. I'd like to hand it over to Roy.
Dina, I believe item number 6C has been pulled.
That is correct.
So would, Mr. Chairman, perhaps we could continue with the rest of the consent calendar, and the change to the agenda that I was going to announce is related to item 6C. Then I can address item 6C as part of the staff report for item 6C, since it's being pulled.
Okay, great. So now we move on to the main part of our agenda, which includes, it's normally divided into first the consent calendar, the regular agenda, and commission reports. First up are the consent calendar items. These are the items that are considered non-controversial in nature and are typically voted on collectively in a single motion without any staff presentation, public comment, or commission deliberation. However, if a member of the public or a commissioner has requested a consent item be heard, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and be given an individual hearing. And as Roy indicated, the public has pulled item 6C, and items removed from the consent calendar will be heard individually immediately after the consent calendar vote. So there were originally 4 items on tonight's consent calendar. There we will now be voting on 3 of them, and I'll read the 3. First one is item 6A, approval of the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of February 4th, 2021. The next item is item 6B as in boy, approval of the minutes for the regular Planning Commission meeting of February 18th, 2021. And the last item is item 6D, a final parcel map of 16235 TPM, and that is case number 16-235 TPM. And this is a public hearing to consider approval of the recordation of the final parcel map for the case number 16235. The project is located at 233 and 239 4th Street in Old Encinitas. So do I have a motion to approve the 3 items on the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Okay, Susan, motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Kevin, second. Motion a second. Call the question.
All right. Chair Ehlers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle,
Aye.
Commissioner Dalton,
Aye.
Commissioner Flicker,
Aye.
and Commissioner Sherrod.
Aye.
All right, the vote passes unanimously.
Okay, great. So the next item is we talk about items removed from the consent calendar. And the first item we're going to, or the only item we're going to consider there is item 6C, which is the inclusionary housing ordinance and in lieu fee, which is policy PLCY or policy 004342-2021. This is a continued public hearing to consider amending chapter 30.41, the affordable housing chapter of the Encinitas Municipal Code to change the city's inclusionary housing regulations to increase the inclusionary housing percentage requirements to better address the need for affordable units for all residential development and to consider an in lieu fee as an alternative method of compliance and a new affordable housing impact fee for residential care facilities. So with that, are there any disclosures? I see none. Okay. And so we begin with a staff report. I guess this is a continuation. So Roy, you want to take it from here with an updated staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, staff, and members of the public that are joining us tonight. This item was before the Planning Commission on March 18th. At that meeting, Planning Commission considered the suggested modifications to the ordinance and made certain or specific changes or recommendations to the inclusionary ordinance, including a 50% inclusionary requirements for the R30 sites. That's one of the recommendations that the Planning Commission made that night. However, there's still remaining portions of the ordinance, the draft ordinance, that the Planning Commission still have to go through. So because of the time conflict, the Planning Commission that night continued the item to tonight's hearing. Unfortunately, the item has been continued solely due to staff workload. This is not there's no other reason other than the fact that we, as you're all aware, on April 7th, the City Council considered the housing element, and staff, that was a priority for staff, and we focused all of our resources on ensuring that we completed that effort, as is a monumental effort for the city. So that item went to the City Council on the 7th, and the staff report for this item was due on the 8th. So basically that's one of the main reasons why we continued the item. Second, the reason why it was off calendar for the month of May, both meetings in May are loaded with items. And what you'll see on May 6th, we have 4 policy documents that will be coming before you, and those policy documents will consume all of May 6th agenda. As far as May 20th, that agenda was tentatively scheduled or reserved for some of our controversial projects, private development, that were slated for that hearing, which is why we didn't set a certain date for the inclusionary item. However, we received confirmation this past Monday on some of the items that will be moved to June, which has allowed us to free up May 20th. And that's why tonight we are recommending that this item, we are requesting to amend our recommendation that this item be continued to a date certain on May 20th. So that is the brief staff report, and we are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. And are there any questions of staff for clarification? So I think we may have more questions when we come to discussion. I now open the hearing for public comment. Are there any public comments, Dina?
Yes, we do have 2 speakers. First up is Suzanne Clausenstock.
Chair, if I might.
Yes.
Before we get into public testimony, I do want to point out that this item was noticed as a continuance. And as you know, there is no staff report or other backup materials. So any public comment or discussion regarding the item tonight really should be limited to the issue of the continuance.
So before we go to the public comments, but it was actually noticed date certain to tonight. So it is a fully noticed. In fact, isn't it within the purview and capability of the Planning Commission to choose to hear it tonight if they so choose? Because we're under the original notification that was continued date certain to tonight. So anybody who was at that meeting has full expectation that we could fully discuss this item tonight.
Well, in my review of the agenda and the attachments, I did not see any backup material that would be before you for any substantive discussions. The only report that was there was a memo for a continuance. So, you know, from my point of view, this was specifically identified for a continuance. And just as you say, maybe some people were expecting or could think that it would be a full. There's many people that would think that it's just being continued.
Well, I think most of the discussion I have is around the continuance anyways, but I'd like to let the planning commission, it's really, I'm only one of 5, and I want to give the entire planning commission a chance to weigh in at least. And if we get out of what you think are the bounds of what's been noticed for tonight, please interject accordingly. And but I don't plan to go out beyond the bounds you just described, but I think there's plenty to discuss within those bounds. So with that, let's go to public comments. And Suzanne, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, whether I say it this time or May 20th, it'll be the same commenting, so try to keep it in your heads. Dear commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to let you know, first of all, that it's amazing that you are bringing the inclusionary numbers of affordable housing up to 50%. Hopefully that'll allow us to reach our housing elements required numbers of affordable homes far sooner, which will be good for the people that it's most intended for, and also it'll keep the city from being overrun with market rate units. I had a concern about the continuance, but Roy explained that very nicely, and so I'm no longer up in arms about that. So thank you for explaining that. That was very helpful. In my sister's hometown of Los Gatos, I've talked about Los Gatos a few times before. They have their affordable upzone areas of R20 with a maximum cap of 27 units per acre. They also have the 50% inclusionary affordable housing. On the other hand, Encinitas has fallen into a very different category, whether it's because we came to the negotiating table too late or other nefarious reasons. Our upzone developments are R30. And so far, the largest maximum upzone due to incentives and waivers is Goodson's 40 units per acre based on gross acreage. Oddly enough, too, I believe he's claiming nearly half an acre of Rancho Santa Fe Road as part of his gross acreage. And that just doesn't seem right. I'm really hoping that Planning Commission staff will look really closely at how these gross acreages are encompassed in the usable area that they're allowed to calculate. As far as HCD's view of us, I have to say I'm so tired of our residents being called NIMBYs and wanting privilege protection. We worked hard to buy our homes here, and I assure you, after talking to families who live next to Goodson's proposed 68 feet tall monstrous apartments, that these families they're sickened. And rightfully so, it's not what they bought into. I feel it's the city's duty to protect its citizens as much as possible, even if it means fighting the state in court. These developments must meet reasonable building standards. More cities in California are up in arms against the state. I would hope Encinitas is on the right side of this as well. Even though our own family owns rental properties throughout San Diego County, including Encinitas, we would hate to see any codes that would allow such unreasonable developments to be built. The way our city has handled development in building code and design review is what has given Encinitas its charm and what makes it so valuable for us to live here. I am so pleased that there's a positive shift in the Planning Commission. You guys are pushing back to regain that local control. And I have to say, personally, I can't tell you how sincerely we appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Our final speaker is Susan Turney.
Okay.
Hi, Dina. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Susan Turney, Encinitas. Last month, commissioners voted to increase the inclusionary to 50%. 50% would meet our RENA numbers faster and reduce the total number of units needed by about 4,000. 4,000 fewer units and 40,000 fewer daily car trips. But someone doesn't seem to like this. Scheduled to finalize this item tonight with the in lieu fee discussion, staff instead removed it from the regular agenda. Asked last night to explain, as he did again this evening, Roy kept repeating the word workload. An attorney I consulted said staff do not have the authority to change the agenda. Only the council does, and only after a public hearing, which has not been held. Staff moved this item tonight to consent. Why? It is not non-controversial in nature. Staff further had recommended that the item be, quote, continued off calendar, end quote. Even the mayor didn't know what that meant. It is clear to me that it was public pressure alone that caused today's update to May 20th as a date certain. This interference in the Planning Commission process has all the appearances of corruption. Where is it coming from? A council that maintains 15% is the max they can do would find a 50% recommendation embarrassing. Developers don't want to hear it either. There are many who believe that City Hall lives a life separate from the public one. It includes fear, intimidation, and manipulation designed to serve the BIA and not residents. This is supported by Commissioner Sherrod's disturbing message to me after her vote to support 50% last month. Quote, I hope my comments don't result in being kicked off the Planning Commission, end quote. There is so much that doesn't add up. Roy has quoted an HCD warning that paralleled exactly his erroneous claims of required subsidies for higher affordable housing in Los Gatos and Corte Madera. Chair Ehlers spoke with those cities and corrected this claim publicly. So how did Roy's bad information end up being quoted by HCD? I'd like to know who alerted HCD to have them write a letter to the city based on last month's Planning Commission meeting. Roy was vague yesterday and gave no specifics. Hopefully we get some answers tonight, explicitly, who, what, why, and when. Anything less keeps the public in the dark. Something seems seriously off here. Please correct whatever is going on by allowing this process to run unobstructed without manipulation or attempts to delay it. Be transparent. With 2 Coast News articles and heavy discussion online, be aware that many are watching. Your actions will speak louder than your words. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the speakers on item 6C.
Okay, and I'm going to leave public comment open because if we do end up continuing it, if I close comment for the new commissioners, the next meeting there would be no public comment, and I believe this is one of those cases where both sides, all sides will have comments in the future. So by leaving public comment open now, and if and when we continue it, it will be open and we can take comments from the public again. So does staff wish to respond to any of the comments?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, I would like to address a few comments. One regarding the comments from HCD. So just for the record, HCD staff watch our Planning Commission meeting. The email that we received from HCD, we distributed to the Planning Commission earlier this afternoon. As you can see, it was HCD that inquired about immediately following your action on 18th. There was an email sent from HCD requesting clarification on your action that you took on March 18th. And that is HCD, we didn't have any conversations with HCD. They inquired about your action the following day. And because we know that they do watch our Planning Commission meetings. So I just wanted to address that concern related to HCD. And then the other concern is related to the 3 of the cities that had high inclusionary requirements. Included in your packet, for the March 18th packet, we provided a memo that outlined all the different, the cities and their ordinances and how those ordinances are structured, including all the different incentives that are included and provided in order to incentivize the increase in affordable housing. So that's included in the memo, or in that memo that we distributed for the last meeting. So those are the only 2 things I wanted to respond to, and I'm available to answer questions.
Okay. I won't get into that discussion now. I think we'll save that for the next meeting. I think we had that discussion, and I won't even go into it now. So with that, we can now open it up to commission deliberation. And if I might, I'd like to take the lead on this one if I could, because I was going to pull this from the agenda. the first thing, I don't know if we have the Planning Commission bylaws, so my opening comments would first go to the Planning Commission bylaws. And I don't know if that's possible to bring those up, Dina. I can read the quote about continuances, and I think it's really important that we all understand it. So I'll give you a minute. If you can pull it up, great. If you can't, I'll just read it.
Looks like Roy might be able.
Okay. I'm looking for section 6.1.k, which describes the Planning Commission procedure for continuances. If you want me, I can just go ahead, Roy. You're on mute now.
Yeah, only when this is active can I use the space bar to unmute. I was asking what item that was, because I was going to pull that up.
There we go. Yeah. And so the passage there in section K, the commission may continue an item for any reason, provided the commission states the reasoning for the continuance, which must include an explanation for why the continuance would potentially enable the commission to obtain the additional information or project revisions they may need to reach a decision at the subsequent continued hearing date. So from this, I'm gathering a couple things. One, continuances are the purview of the commission. So ultimately, the five of us together have the decision-making power whether it gets continued. But the other, probably more important to me right now, is the explanation why the continuance would potentially enable the commission to obtain additional information. And I'm a little perplexed. I think I was quoted in the paper, and I am perplexed. Tonight's memo, I'll call it memo number 1, says it's being continued to, quote, review and work with consultant to prepare responses to the Planning Commission comments. Well, I have a problem with two things there. What consultant? Is it KMA? And if so, none of that was in the subsequent reason for the continuance that was explained last night to the city council, or in what we heard earlier tonight in the latest memo. And I'm very concerned about what is the reason. I want the public and I want the commission to understand what are the reasons. If there's work being done with a consultant, I want to know who, what, and what direction was given by the commission, because quite frankly, I thought we just ran out of time last time and we continued it due to time constraints, and we really didn't have any formal request to staff to come back and tell us any additional information. And this concerns me. So we're governed by our bylaws, and what I'm still perplexed. So where I want to go with this discussion tonight is to continue to ask staff, what information are we looking for and why? And then there's actually a third explanation, which I think was last night. And I asked staff to be prepared to play the explanation given last night. And so I'd like to do that, because there was also comment that the third reason was due to an HCD letter, which I asked staff to send to the commission. And that was the email from HCD that Roy referred to just now. So, but that wasn't in the original memo either. So I really want to understand why we're continuing. And so I don't know if the commission had a chance to see last night's explanation, but I think it would be important to watch it. It starts at about minute 27. I know Dina forwarded the link to everybody, but it was this afternoon and I doubt we all had time. So if IT is queued up, can we just play that? It's probably about 4 or 5 minutes of discussion of why the continuance was necessary. And I want to make sure we as a body know why we're continuing this and we agree and it's our decision to continue.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, since I was the one who responded to the request last night and I'm on the video, I could address that.
I actually, there's more than just you speaking, Roy. I think it's of value. It's part of the public record. It's what I've watched. And in order to get the commission all on the same page, I think it's important just to play it, because I don't think they had time necessarily. I happen to be watching the proceedings. And so, you know, it's all about doing this in the public and making sure we all five have the same information in front of us. So, yeah, IT, can you play that?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Looking for the timestamp for it.
Yeah, it was around the 27 or 28 minute mark into the meeting.
And while Karen is working on that, I can address the consultant question.
Okay.
So as you recall, Commissioner Doyle provided a spreadsheet of his own calculations. So that is the primary reason. That's the work that we are working with the consultant to vet that analysis.
Okay, but we did not, as a commission, ask for that information.
But it's part of the discussion that was presented by the commission, and it's part of the discussion for the recommendations, what was being recommended. So it was important for staff and the public for us to be able to vet the information presented by Commissioner Doyle and be given the opportunity to respond to those, because we didn't have the opportunity to do that. It was presented that night.
Understood.
Our goal was to,
ultimately, I think what should have happened is it should have come back to the commission with a request that should we go do that, and we need a continuance in order to do that. It's a question of whose purview are continuances. And Roy, we got to get this straight. We're the discretionary body. You're not the discretionary body. We need to have that decision within our purview. And if you need extra time, you need to come back and ask us if lacking the direction from us already. And it just concerns me that I'm seeing the memo says one thing, what you're going to say on this tape says something different, and it's even nuanced again. I really want to make sure that we are the decision-making discretionary body, at least for the recommendation of the council. The council can go take our recommendation, ignore it, use it. You know, that's their prerogative. I wouldn't want to invade their prerogative. So if we can play this.
Would it be possible to get staff to address this issue? I've heard that's about the third comment on the Planning Commission agenda. Is there a way to get a response at this point?
Yes, if I could, Madam Mayor, I would be happy to have our Deputy Director of Community Development address this.
That would be great. Please do so.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Royce Powell, Assistant Director of Development Services. Regarding the issue related to inclusionary tonight, that item was before the Planning Commission on in March 2021. As all the speakers mentioned, the Planning Commission took several actions, one of which to increase the inclusionary housing requirement. Actually, it was only for the R30 sites and not for citywide. So the 50% election was only for R30 sites. That item was continued to April 15th, as all the speakers mentioned. Unfortunately, due to workload and also to manage the Planning Commission agenda, that we staff elected to continue the item off calendar. However, we are planning to bring that forward to Planning Commission on May 20th for the commission to continue their deliberation and hopefully make a recommendation to the City Council. If they make a recommendation on May 20th, we plan to bring that forward to City Council, either the last meeting in June or the first meeting in August.
And I know I didn't influence your decision to make this change to the agenda. Were there any elected officials that had input into that decision?
This decision was basically it was solely based on the workload and also managing the planning commission, future planning commission agendas. We have several items, private development and other policy documents that are slated for the first meeting in May. And because those items were already slated, that we felt that we needed to consider the agendas, and the next available agenda was May 20th, but that was decided after we published the agenda report for the continuation of the item. But this was solely based on staff's decision, based on workload and the planning commission agenda.
Thank you.
And just one more question. So, and I feel certain that none of the electeds were involved in this at all. I mean, it really was, staff was making decisions with the fact that our principal planner, we have one housing person and she is working on the housing element. So I think that the reality is we have a lot of housing work and it all falls on Jennifer Gates. And, I think that decision was made by the staff because she just wasn't able to get all the information together. But when you use the term continued off calendar, I don't even understand what you're saying there, because you're saying that you continued it to a future planning commission date. So what does it mean when you say we continued it off calendar?
That's the language that we use. In order for an item to not be renoticed, you have to continue an item to a certain date. But if you don't continue an item to a certain date, the planning staff is obligated to issue a new notice. So because we continued it off calendar, because we didn't know, we didn't have a set date at the time. So we recommended to continue it off calendar, but staff will issue a new notice for the future hearing date. And right now we're slated to bring that forward to the Planning Commission on May 20th, and we will issue a new notice for that hearing.
Okay, thank you. And I do hope that you can just make sure to keep that date. And we have been talking about the inclusionary percentage for so long, and we hired a consultant to try to get the highest percentage that would be accepted by HCD. And I do hope we can put this to bed, because we have been talking about this for a long time. So, let's try to prioritize that work.
And I noticed at the last meeting when the vote was for 50% that we received an email from Robin Huntley at HCD. Will that be part of the staff report that comes out for the May item?
Yes, that will be included. And I do want to address, if I could, the issue related to HCD supporting the 50%. That we have not received any documentations or emails or inquiries from HCD expressing support of the 50% inclusionary requirement.
So you received what Councilmember Kranz is referring to as a letter that opposes 50%. Is that what you're saying? Or says it doesn't comply, or what?
They requested that we provide additional incentives if we choose to increase our inclusionary to 50%. They are making suggestions that we should incentivize affordable housing if we want to increase up to 50%. So basically what we have today in our inclusionary ordinance does not meet the intent. So that's one of the reasons why we continued the item, is for us to have the conversations to better understand HCD's position. So
okay, I see. Thank you. I can see the city attorney leaning forward to say this is not agendized. We can't go into it. So I'm going to just say thank you very much, and let's let the rest of the public comments move forward. And thank you for clarifying that here in the middle of the comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gerald.
Okay, I appreciate everybody's patience in watching that. I thought it was jam-packed with information and explanation about what we're talking about tonight in particular. And I was afraid all 5 of us had not had a chance to see it, and I wanted us all to be on the exact same page. So there's several questions I have in there, but I want to let the rest of the commission now hop in, ask questions. And we're in deliberation now, so let me know what you think about continuation. Anybody? You're all quiet.
I'll jump in then. I could have plowed forward with this agenda item, although once I got the continuance notice, I'm unprepared, or not as well prepared as I would be otherwise tonight. And I think since the notice went out saying there's a continuation, and not everyone was sat through the entire city council meeting last night. So there's people who perhaps would like to speak on this tonight who wouldn't otherwise, because they think, oh, it's just a continuance. So I can work with the May 20th date. Just so you know, now, Roy, you mentioned that you're going over the charts I created last, what was that, March 18th? Basically, that was my first quick hack on that, and I've continued developing that. I'm actually going to, by the time we come up to the May 20th, I expect to have a more advanced version of my analysis for those properties. But so I'm not, I don't know. I also had a feeling that there was politics involved in this, but I have no basis for this other than my personal feelings, and I'm not going to really go there. So I'm just glad we're moving forward with this. This is, we were dealt a significant blow with the shooting down the 2020-09 and -16. The density bonus ordinance had some very key provisions in it that I'm very sad to have lost. And we'll do what we do best here. We're gonna, at the end of this, we're gonna produce a legally defensible, well thought out and thorough recommendation to council, and I expect it will be backed by findings of fact, as Bruce taught me 4 years ago. Thank you, Bruce.
Other commissioners? Steve?
I have no problem continuing it. Like Kevin, I think, once I saw that it was on the calendar to be continued, I kind of didn't really read up, though. Based on our last meeting, I think I still have all the notes and stuff. So I don't see anything evil, no evil intent here. This is purely just a schedule management, I think, by the planning department. I don't see any ill intent or conspiracy in this. So I'd be happy to continue.
Susan?
Well, I was fully prepared to go ahead tonight, and then we did get the notice, and I'm okay with it either way. I'm ready to go forward tonight if we want to. And if we decide to go and continue, I'll go with the flow on that.
Okay. Amy, so one of the questions, I got a thumbs up from Amy. As far as the additional analysis being performed, this is KMA doing this, Roy?
Yes, staff working with KMA.
Okay, and I thought during our discussion last time, we talked about having KMA do some stuff, and I thought there was comments made, there was not funding. So where did the funding come from for this additional work?
That's part of the conversation that we're having with KMA to identify some opportunities within the budget to, as part of their scope of work, to see if some of this work could be covered under their scope of work that was approved as part of their contract.
So it's interesting when we discussed having additional work done, I think, in Kevin's case, back during the deliberation, we ran into a brick wall, but now the brick wall has softened apparently. And that troubles me. That troubles me a lot. So I guess the first question I would ask, now that we're at an interim point in continuing it, at least maybe Kevin or the rest of the commission, are there any additional analyses we'd like to see done, because quite frankly, the continuance is for our reason that it should be continued. And, you know, I'd like to see their analysis updated for the errors we found. And I'd also absolutely like to see it include developer profit. If you remember back when we were talking, there was $11 million extra of developer profit that was not accounted for. And when we questioned Paul from KMA, he said, yeah, sometimes we do that. And I'd like to know why we didn't do that from the beginning, because it was the landowner was making $3 million in profit, and the developer, if you read the detail, at least of the example I looked at, was making 11 million. So 3 to 4 times the amount that the landowner was making. But the analysis that we discussed in the last meeting was strictly limited to gain in land value or loss in land value, and that's how they determined it. There were several things missing in that analysis that I think need to be remedied. The effect of free inclusionary, because you get to double count. There was the third one too. Oh, the fact that we're comparing in the citywide, the analysis looked at up to a 3-year loss of appreciation was acceptable. But if we look at the R30 zones, we're not only not looking at any loss of a value, but we're saying it has to gain a certain amount. So you would think we'd be measuring both cases against the same baseline. So there's probably a 3 to 10% value difference that is given to the developers of R30 in the analysis. So there's quite a bit of reanalysis to do. And if there's budget to do staff work, then there should be budget to do the planning commission work. And quite frankly, the planning commission work should come first. I actually feel a little differently than Steve. I feel like I'm arguing against an opponent who is controlling the game, and staff is taking a position against this idea. And I don't appreciate that, because the discretion is this commission's, not staff's. Staff needs to be neutral on this and how it's continued and the reasons behind the continuance, and give us fact-based information for us to make our decision on. And you know, I'm frustrated. What can I say? And this was bad. I do not want to see this. So with that, I was going to vote no unless we continued this to date certain. So I was happy that in the interim, we got this continued to date certain. Amy, you've got your hand up?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, I skipped Steve and Susan. Do you have your hands up? Were you planning to talk? Or, I'm going to do Steve, then Amy, because they were up first.
I think we're kind of coming to an end of this discussion. I don't mean to prolong it. I think if we produce an Excel spreadsheet within our group that proposes a certain profitability or analysis, I think it's very appropriate that that be sent back to KMA for them to do their analysis. I don't think any of us sitting on the board are qualified in the same way that they are to run those calculations. So I don't take any offense that they're being asked to look at that.
Yeah. And Amy?
Steve, I hear you, but at the same time too, I also hear the chair, and you know, it's concerning, and I hear that as well. So how do you balance the two, right?
Yeah. So the one other item is that you notice that the quote, the other reason I wanted the tape played is that at the very end, Mayor Blakespeare was very clear about prioritization. She almost sounded frustrated herself about how long we've been discussing inclusionary. And so I would ask Roy or staff that there are 4 policy items coming anew to the commission on our next meeting. Why don't we bump half of those to the next meeting and handle the rest of this discussion in the first meeting in May? Let's get this thing done. I like to chew all the way through and get it out the door and then start new policies. I don't want to start new policies while I still have this one hanging out. So is that possible? And especially given the mayor's desire to prioritize this and get it done expeditiously.
Yes, we can look into that. And so right now we do the two critical ordinances that have to stay on the 6th are the repeals to the two ordinances that City Council directed us to do as part of the housing element update, and that included the density bonus ordinance and the group home ordinance. So those repeals will be on the May 6th. There are two other ordinances that are slated for that night as well, and that includes cannabis and also the parking standards. So parking, that could be moved to another, the next meeting, but we could perhaps put inclusionary on the 3rd.
I would propose moving cannabis too to the 20th. Because I mean, that was on April 1st's agenda that got summarily canceled. So that I call that a pocket continuance. That was another one I wasn't happy about.
The only concern is given that we were put out to the May 20th, we just need to work with our consultant to make sure that they have enough time to address the comments or the spreadsheet by Commissioner Doyle, as well as some of the comments that you brought up tonight.
Well, and by the same token, they need to address the deficiencies in their own analysis and make sure that they're bringing something to us that we can question, they can stand behind. You know, we've already went down the path of trying to get the spreadsheet ourselves, according to staff, that's KMA private property. But so I need for me to support this, I need their analysis updated to take into account developer profit and the deficiencies we discussed. So
that's the only concern is the timing with the consultant for the 3rd or for the May 6th hearing in order to make the May 6th.
Yeah. Well, good news, it's 3 weeks, so it's not 2 weeks, right? This is the one time out of the year, isn't it 3 weeks from now?
Yeah, so it's 2 weeks. The report has to be published 2 weeks from today.
Well, my point is you have double the time you normally would.
Correct.
Yeah. So with that, if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion. Or I'll make one if nobody wants to make it. Steve?
I make a motion that we continue this to May 20th.
I think we said May 6th.
May 6th.
If you're agreeable.
I'm agreeable with that.
Susan, did you have a comment? I couldn't hear you.
I'll second.
Okay, great. So I got a motion and a second to continue date certain to May 6th. Any further commission commentary, questions, discussion? If not, call the question.
Right, Chair Ehlers?
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Dalton?
Aye.
Commissioner Flipper?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sherritt?
Abstain.
The vote passes unanimously.
And Susan, you said abstain, I think?
Yes, because as I said previously, I was prepared to hear it tonight, but I will go with the flow.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to make sure she recorded it correctly. I think it gets recorded as voting with the majority anyway, so.
Yeah, I actually don't understand what that means. I don't get that vote.
Yeah. Barry, do you want to explain abstention?
Yeah, so let me just start by saying that all of you, as part of your duties as a commissioner, have a duty to vote and to make a decision. Where you have a conflict, then obviously you cannot participate in a decision. Abstentions are generally used for those people that are not necessarily prepared to make a vote. For instance, someone who was not at a prior meeting and they're at another meeting, they haven't read the materials, et cetera, that would be an appropriate reason for an abstention. What I can do, we had the same issue at council. I will circulate for all of you a memo that we've done on abstention, so everyone is clear on that. But essentially, the rule is, as a commissioner, you have a duty to vote unless you have a conflict or for some other reason you are unprepared or unable to vote. So in this particular case, Commissioner Sherrod, I think your vote should have either been a yes, just because you're going to go with the flow, or if you felt very strongly against it, then you just vote no. Because at the end of the day, your abstention is recorded as a yes vote.
Okay, well then, I guess it could change my vote to yes.
Okay, and then for everyone's benefit, I will circulate the memo that we circulated for city council.
Please
so
do,
that benefit.
And thank you, Susan. I'm glad we clarified that. And so it'll be recorded as a yes vote, a unanimous yes vote on the motion. Okay, and I think that is it for the item 6C. Now we'll move on to our regular agenda. On our one item on the regular agenda, which is the Muirden remodel, case number CDP 004028-2020. This is a public hearing to consider a coastal development permit for the modification of windows and doors, removal of a chimney, and other minor associated interior and exterior improvements. The project is located at 304 Neptune Avenue in Old Encinitas. Are there any disclosures? None? So, and we begin with a staff report presented by Senior Planner Andrew Maynard. So I think, Dina, you have to come off mute.
I'm bringing it up right now. Can you choose the screen? Sure. Perfect. Thank you, Chair, Commission, and public. This is the Muirden remodel. It's case number 14028-2020, and the applicant is Paul Muirden, and the representative is Craig Lewis. It includes one discretionary permit, which is a coastal development permit, and ultimately the CEQA determination. Site's located at 304 Neptune Avenue. That's just south of South El Portal, and also Stone Steps beach access. It's currently developed with the existing single-family home, which includes a basement and 2 stories above. And the site's in the R8 zone. It's also in the coastal bluff overlay and coastal appeal overlay zone. It's surrounded by similar zoning conditions, so R8, RS11, and then the ocean to the west. And then it's surrounded also by a variety of single-family homes and duplexes. So this is on the upper left is the view, the street view to the site. That's a basement garage. To the lower left is from the ocean side. And then the 2 side views for the existing single family home. So the applicant did some public outreach. One was a citizen participation program, and there was a virtual meeting on November 7th, 2020. There was no one in attendance, and then no one submitted any comments or concerns. The city also did a legal notice on April 1st, 2020, within our 500-foot radius, and staff received no comments or concerns as well during the entire project review process. The coastal development permits required since the existing structure is located within 50 feet of the bluff, any expansion of windows, doors, and the like require a coastal permit. So in terms of site improvements, the applicant's proposing to remove an existing deck on the most westerly part of the property, to install at-grade pavers, no other gradings proposed, all drainage will be directed towards Neptune Avenue. And then it also includes the removal of spa. Otherwise, there's no other physical site improvements. In terms of, as we look at the views on the north view, there's one garden view that currently projects that's proposed to be flush against the house and replaced. There's some slightly expanded views, windows on that north elevation, which connect into the west elevation. There's one chimney that's proposed to be removed where you see infill eaves, so it'd be just replaced with eaves. And then on the lower part of the west elevation, there's existing windows that will be removed and then replaced with stacking doors. As we go to the south elevation, again, it's just the chimney being removed. And then on the east elevation, just the replacement of the existing door within the same footprint with just a sectional type door. As I indicated, there's no additions on the physical home. All modifications have been reviewed by our geotechnical engineer, as well as the building official. And they identified no concerns. There was recommendations in the geotechnical report, which the applicant will have to follow during construction and through the building permit process. All of their work is repair and maintenance. So there is some shingle repair. All the windows within the existing footprint will be removed. There's some other decorative type elements on the elevations. In terms of secret determination, it's currently exempt per secret guideline 15301, which is for repair, maintenance, and minor alterations to the existing structures with no major goal or no expansion. As indicated, there's no additions. There is expansion of windows and doors, the installation of pavers, the demolition of the chimney and eaves, and infill eaves, and then allowance of other replacement windows and doors. Overall, the existing building complies with our 8 development standards. So that's the rear yard setback, southerly interior side yard setback, height, FAR, and lot coverage. There is some nonconformities, which are legal nonconformities we verified through previous building permits in terms of lot size, the front yard setback, the really interior side yard setback, and parking. Overall, it complies with all coastal bluff requirements. Drainage will be directed away from the bluff. And as a condition, the bluff will be preserved within the open space easement. Overall, staff's recommending approval of case number CDP 4028-2020 with the draft conditions of approval. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, anybody have questions of staff? I see Amy's hand up. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, if you guys can hear me okay, you betcha. I've got a real big question about drainage. Can somebody talk to me a little bit more about that?
And what was your question about drainage?
Well, I'm just curious, when you say it's acceptable, what is, I'm a little bit curious what that means in today's day and age. Like, what is acceptable drainage up on the bluff there? Because I've got a big question about the basement as well. So where do you want to go? Start with the drainage, start with the basement. Where do you want to go?
Sure, I can talk about the drainage. There's no real...
Oh, Jesse, hey. All right.
Good evening.
Hey.
There are minimal surface improvements to the property, as Andrew mentioned, just a couple demolition and removals.
Okay, say that to me one time slower. There's what? Minimal
land disturbance, surface improvements.
Okay.
My understanding is they're only removing a deck and a above ground spa. Everything else is basically staying the same, as my understanding.
Okay.
The lot luckily drains to Neptune. It is high at the bluff and lower at the street. So there's positive drainage already in the existing condition.
Okay.
Draining out to Neptune.
Okay.
Because they're not providing new surface, impervious surface area and replacing.
They are not.
To my understanding, and Andrew can correct me, but therefore there's no requirement for any BMPs for treatment, pollution control. It's basically existing conditions.
Okay.
That's correct, Jesse.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Keep going.
Did you want to go to your question about the basement?
Yeah. So no, let Jesse keep going. Yeah. The basement.
That's all I have on the existing drainage, unless there's more questions.
Yeah, I want to understand how we're going to support a basement with this questionable drainage. So can you talk to me a little bit about how we're going to support the basement?
My understanding is the structure's fully in place as is. They're not creating or constructing a basement. It's basically carved in already.
So it's there. They're not going to change anything about it.
That's correct. There's no changes to existing basement or footprint of the home.
Okay, how does that get pumped up and out? Like if there's
the building is above street grade. There's no subterranean lower than street grade, and so to my knowledge, there's no existing pumps on the property. Everything just gravity drains out to Neptune.
Okie dokie. Okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense, Jesse. Okay, so what do you mean? It just like it's a basement, and so it like what's the system that gets it up and out of there right now?
I think
So
it's
the
gravity flow. Yeah.
Yeah, the basement, the garage level is 4 to 5 feet above the street grade. So it's not.
What?
It's
So that's
up
not
higher.
basement.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
can see it in the plans too, right?
Yeah, I did, but I mean, that's why I'm confused. It's not really subterranean.
Well, there's a approximately 15-foot rise from street grade to the bluff. And so even though you go up 5 feet plus or minus to the garage elevation, the basement still may be carved into the bluff. So it's still, for planning purposes, it's considered a basement.
Correct.
Subterranean.
So at least for a basement definition, at least 50% of the exterior walls have to be buried or have less than 4 feet of exposure. So you might have some exposed sides. So for the basement, you have it right here. So it is exposed on this side, but it's buried on all other sides. So the drainage would just go down the driveway down to Neptune, like in this picture.
That is hugely helpful. Thank you.
Right.
There you go. Okay, any other questions, Amy?
I'm good.
Okay, anybody else have questions? I had one question, if you can go, Andrew, if you can go back to you had where they removed the spa on your presentation, you had the drawing there, and it says remove and replace, but then the orange bubble says remove. And so can they come back at a future date and put a portable spa in? Or would that be considered would that require a building permit, I guess is the ultimate question, or could they do that in that bluff setback in the future?
They could come back and do that, and you're right, it would require a building permit to do that.
So I thought it's no grading permit, but I thought you couldn't do anything that required a building permit in that area.
So we do consider that a minor accessory structure, which is permitted. We have run that past the Coastal Commission and their agreement with that for just above ground spas. You cannot do an in-ground spa, however.
Okay, so if they wanted to do any structure, okay, so it's okay.
If I could.
So the comment of remove it is really just temporary and it's always going to be allowed in the future anyways.
If I could clarify, the above ground spa, the permit is not necessarily for the spa itself. The building permit will only be required for the plumbing and the electrical.
Okay.
So that's what we presented that to the Coastal Commission, and they felt that that's acceptable.
Roy, can you say that to me one more time? Say that again.
For an above ground spa, you don't need a building permit for the spa itself, but you do need a building permit for plumbing and electrical. So it's only the trenching that you need for the electrical lines and the plumbing. So for the water.
Okay. And then one other quick question I have, if nobody else has one. And on page 5, it said that the bluff will be, it will be preserved. Isn't it already preserved in open space, or has there not been any, was it not preserved back when the house was built in 89, 88, wherever?
Yeah, so when I looked at the old grading records and title and everything, it was not preserved in open space easement. So that little sliver on the back where the bluff is, we would just do an open space easement across that piece.
Okay, great. So you're cleaning up stuff.
Correct.
I got my questions answered. Anybody else? I see Kevin with a hand up.
Thank you. Would it be okay if I shared my screen for a moment?
Sure.
Just, I got some pictures that I found online of this backyard, and it'll help if you can see what I'm looking at. So I'm looking here at the back deck. This is from one of the sales. This is from Zillow, actually. So these are reasonably current, I believe. We have our sauna there. I'm looking at the deck, which is what, 1, 2, 3 steps up. And let me back over. So here's the deck. So the deck's to be removed and replaced with pavers of an unspecified sort. And this glass wall that's at the edge of the deck is marked to be retained. When I look here, I'm just trying to picture, it's like, where are the paver, what's under the deck? Feels to me that it's like, if that glass wall is what's going to be used, then it's going to have to be built up to have pavers on top of there. I'm concerned that a wooden deck may weigh less than God knows what kind of heavy duty pavers. I'm not sure if it's within our purview or not. Honestly, the rest of the house looks fine. I have no reason to discuss any of it, really. I feel it's, people are redoing their home and it's well within their bounds. But when we deal with that last 40 feet before the bluff edge, that's where I get a little iffy. And I think given a lot of public interest in bluffs and bluff collapses, this is something we should be always focusing more definitely on. So I'm curious what's going there in place of that deck, because I'm quite frankly not seeing what's going to happen. I mean, let me see one more view from up above. I mean, it looks like it's on the same level here, but you can see it's definitely a step up. And I'm not sure, does the applicant have anyone here who could discuss this?
Yeah, Craig Lewis should be online.
Craig, can you hear us? Looks unmuted.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's dialed in with his.
Well, give him a minute. I mean, it takes a minute.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we're patient here.
Yeah. Give him a
That's why
minute.
we can't wait to get back in
He's
person.
in there.
So,
If he's on that side, he's a panelist.
I mean, just give him a second.
Craig, can you hear us?
Do we give it like literally where you say, Craig? Okay.
Yeah.
RIT is looking at it, but to answer your question, Kevin, they're all proposed all at grade. They would not be able to raise the grade or change it. Our geotechnical engineer did review the pavers in terms of weight stability. Also, they had a private geotechnical engineer that appeared and looked at all these conditions and weighed in on that as well in terms of the bluff stability. So and they didn't identify any concerns with it in terms of replacement.
Okay, that's fair enough. I just needed, honestly, I looked at the whole plan and there was the only thing I was interested in what was in the backyard. The rest of it is a private residence that's ordinarily wouldn't come in front of us.
Amy?
Thank you, Chair. I'm with Commissioner Doyle a little bit, but maybe on a different topic still, is that basement. We sure about that? I mean, are we sure that that is like, when you say that they've got their 4 walls and all that's all steady and good, are we sure about that? Who makes sure it's good about that?
Well, we verified it as a qualifying basement and it was previously permitted through a building permit. If you're talking about drainage.
No, I'm actually talking about like almost even the structure of it. Like, how are we sure? Like, who makes sure that that's not going to erode? And just like when all that movement happens, when you know, a construction project happens, that's not going to become a problem. Who makes sure about that?
There's no proposed work with the basement. It's an existing condition.
What?
There's no proposed work as part of the basement area?
Right. My point being is, so are we, like tonight, are we trying to actually say that that basement is something that we're saying is okay as is? Is that correct?
No.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address Commissioner Flicker's.
Yes, please.
So what's before you tonight, it's a remodel of an existing single family residence. It's an existing basement. The applicant is proposing minor improvements to the basement. However, it is an existing structure. And they are making improvements in other areas of the single family, but it's particularly related to the basement. It's an existing basement that they're not creating a new, where they're not expanding the basement, or they're not creating any new walls to extend the basement. So I hope that addresses your concern. But it is an existing basement.
There's literally no digging on the project whatsoever.
Boom. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah, I mean, they said no changes to the foundation at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and according to the municipal code definition of a basement, that is a basement in our municipal code, and it pretty, at least to what I've seen, my experience, that absolutely qualifies. Just looking at how much dirt is piled up on the sides, you know, how deep it's dug in, it's easily that. Kevin, you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just, I pulled up the geotechnical report and I jumped to the summary of recommendations there. And one of the ones they recommend observation and/or testing to be performed by GSI. And the conclusion here of the geotechnical study is incorporated into our approval, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they are saying, you know, we recommend observation and/or testing to be performed by these guys during placement of subdrains or subdrainage thing, pouring any slabs or flat work, going down to when any developer or homeowner improvements such as flat work, spas, pools, walls, etc. are constructed.
Which I don't think any is proposed, right? None
of that's proposed right now, but it is here, and it is an obligation that I think the homeowner inherits.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just Andrew, just to confirm, there is no flat work or really significant drainage digging proposed here. I thought that was just in the geotechnical report as kind of a caveat for if they try and leverage this for future work.
That's correct. And then once the improvements are constructed out there, our geotechnical engineer will actually go out there and inspect it too as well, in addition to finance staff and our building official or building inspectors as well.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? Susan, I see your hand up, or you have your hand up?
I was just going to say, primarily the reason why we're looking at this is because it is on the bluff, correct? Because otherwise it's basically an interior remodel and repairs, minor repairs on the exterior, removal of the fireplace, which is only all good. So in my opinion, professionally, and also as, you know, commissioner, it doesn't look like it's going to create any jeopardy. And it looks like with the geotechnical report requiring supervision as the work progresses, this looks like a good project.
Yeah. And maybe to clarify where you went, what our decision tonight is really just a coastal development permit. And that's invoked because they're proposing to expand or modify windows and doors within 50 feet of the bluff. And that's within that exclusion zone. But they're allowed to do maintenance. And then the removing the chimney and doing the infill of the eave, I think is that beyond the 40 feet? Is that the reason we hear that?
That's correct. It's within the 50 foot, but beyond the 40 foot. That's
exactly. Yeah. So that's really all we're looking at here is the deck removal, the spa removal. I wanted to clarify that the spa could come back in the future, no problem. I'm good with this, the way it's written and done. So I don't know if there's more discussion. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving this project. And honestly, I have no alterations to make to it.
Yep. I'll second that.
Second.
I think Steve had his hand up first there. If there's any discussion, we'll call a question. No discussion? Call a question.
All right, Chair Ehlers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle,
Aye.
Commissioner Dalton,
Aye.
Commissioner Flicker,
Nay.
and Commissioner Sharon.
Aye.
All right, the vote passes 4-1 with Commissioner Flicker a no.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to item number 9, which is future agenda items added by the planning commissioners. Are there any agenda items planning commissioners wish to add to future meetings? No. Planning commission reports. Are there any?
Oh, wait.
Did somebody? Oh,
Wait.
sorry, Amy.
Yeah, this is me being like dumb and new. Like if we have something that we want to bring forward like this to the planning commission, just as us, like we do this how appropriately?
Right here. That's what item 9, the future agenda is added by planning commissioners. So
Right.
Yeah.
I get that. But what I'm saying is, do we just say it or are we supposed to? Oh,
what's on your mind?
No. I was just asking because I have something on my mind, but I just wanted to know how it was appropriate. That's all.
Okay. So the reason for the kind of 2-step process, you have to agendize it so it can get noticed, so we can all discuss it as a group. So we can't discuss it tonight, but we can put it on a future agenda, and then it'll get noticed, and we can discuss, any topic within the purview of the planning commission.
And that chair could be anything within the planning purview, correct? Like the planning commission's purview.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. I have one that I don't know whether it's adding or in the April 1st meeting, we canceled it. And I know Commissioner Flicker and Doyle had been on a subcommittee and worked, and we didn't get to hear the report of the Leucadia area. And so I'd like to make sure that, I don't know whether that's re-agendizing or I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, can I just drop in there real quick?
well, we're not looking for a report tonight because it wasn't agendized.
No.
Okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
looking at that, but possibly director. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, can speak to that. Roy?
So is that, Roy, is that something? Go ahead.
Referring to the result of last night's city council discussion
No, no. So on April 1st, we had on our agenda two major items. One was the committee report that we were going to discuss and make recommendations to City Council for the CIP. Unfortunately, staff canceled the meeting and we had no chance, to make a timely deliberation and make that recommendation. But quite frankly, all the work that Kevin and Amy did, we didn't get to hear the results of it. And I, for one, would like to hear the results. So what I'm asking in this for future is to agendize the report. It may be a simple report, but maybe we get an update on what happened in the CIP, because I believe at least, Kevin, I think you went and presented your personal ideas, but what unfortunately you didn't have the official rubber stamp of the official stamp of the Planning Commission on that backing.
You're talking about the full might and power of the Planning
Full
Commission.
might and power. Precisely. Well said. Well said. But I think it's a value because we've heard many residents are very concerned with the overwhelming impact on the North Leucadia traffic and infrastructure. And you've done the work. And I think in order to help guide future decisions on planning decisions in the North Leucadia area, it would be good to hear what you've gone off and discovered. Again, so our Planning Commission is all on the same page. And it was an unfortunate cancellation of a meeting last minute that I kind of called it a pocket continuance. It continued those items. Well, actually it did cancel them. So, and I'm saying I'd like to see it back if the commission agrees with me, certainly if the subcommittee agrees with me.
I would like to see it back. And I'm, either meeting in May would work. I think at this point it's informational for us. City Council, well, actually it's not, because City Council has continued the CIP discussion. So maybe we should be meeting about this sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
I would agree.
So if we could have this re-agendized for May 6th, I believe, that would be awesome. It won't eat up our entire evening, but it's important and we're interested. And if we can, come up, because I'm looking forward to discussing this with the rest of the commission.
Very good.
Great.
Okay. Any other items? Moving on to Planning Commission reports. Are there any Planning Commissioner reports other than maybe talking at the council meeting? I guess that wasn't an official Planning Commission role though. It looks like, yeah, go ahead.
Before we move on, Commissioner Flicker asked about commissioner initiated agenda items, and I distinct memories of my first commissioner initiated agenda item, which I was like, great, off you go, staff, and give me some great reports. And instead I found out it was like, no. Roy was actually kind of pretty happy on this one. He was like, off you go, Commissioner Doyle, and prepare this beautiful report. So there are apparently there's nuances to how commissioner initiated agenda items are. I'm pretty sure it's like, and I was trying to pull it up in the bylaws, which are open here, but now I know that the chair, I think, has greater discretion on putting things on the agenda item. And I think that if more than one or two or however many council or commissioners vote on it, at one point we can we don't have to do it all ourselves. Somewhere here we can create work for staff. Honestly, unclear on where that cutoff is. And I think either Barry or Roy might be able to, or actually Bruce, since you and Glenn O'Grady redid the bylaws just a year or two ago. So if one of the three of you wants to take a stab at that, I think that would be a good thing for me to know again and Amy to know. And certainly the people out there who follow us, apparently even HCD watches our meetings.
That's actually one of the things that I want to discuss or report out to the commission. So the potential, if we can move on to my report, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I think so. And we can probably pick up Kevin's question in that.
Yes. So thank you. A couple things to report out, and actually this one came up tonight, and I just want to, the transparency and clear expectations is important to us. And the comment made tonight in terms of who has the authority to continue items, I think that's an important item to discuss. I think it's important for staff to understand our role and for the commission to clarify what each other's roles are. So I think it's important, and I would suggest that we perhaps bring back the bylaws for the commission to discuss and define what those roles are, so that we understand as staff what our roles are when it comes to continuations, so that we all are on the same page. So I just wanted to suggest that we bring that back. And then, since Commissioner Doyle brought up the issue related to council or commission initiated item, I think that would also be a good opportunity for us to discuss, further vet that, and also have a discussion, and then hopefully further clarify the bylaws to clearly identify which items requires staff work, needing staff resources, and which ones is on the commission to prepare. So that's one item. Second item, I'm not sure if you're aware, however, the governor at the last press conference announced that the order, COVID order most likely will be lifted on June 15th. So given there's certain parameters and criteria that we have to fall under in terms of certain thresholds, but right now City Hall is prepared to reopen on June 15th. So, but however, with public meetings, where the city manager and upper management are reaching out to the county in terms of provide any guidance or what would be the guidelines for reopening public hearings. So we will follow suit with what council does. So even though we are reopening, or we're planning to reopen on June 15th, I will report back to the commission when we get some additional information on how soon we can have public meetings at City Hall. So any questions regarding that?
Yeah, I have a question. Is will that remain? Will we still have hybrid Zoom meetings as an option? In other words, will, presumably things might not open up completely. So I could envision initially having the public still reporting in via Zoom or from the next room over on camera. I don't even know. And will the Zoom capability continue so that if a commissioner is not able to make it in or has an exposure or whatever it might be, that they should be isolated, will we be able to Zoom in the future? I mean, my personal preference, I want to be there in person, but I also think for safety, we may be in a hybrid mode for a year.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And those are all the things that we'll be discussing with the county and getting their criteria or guidelines and guidance on that. But we all know COVID has changed how we do business, and we are now discovering that we can do things virtually, and that's an option that like you said, it's available. Most likely will continue to be available. Okay. But we'll confirm and verify that with the county. I'll report that out to the commission.
Okay, Amy, I think you have a question.
I do. Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I lost her. She just dropped. I don't know if we. I think that was it.
Okay.
Give her a moment to come back. Hate to have her suddenly disappear. Otherwise, we're at adjournment. So
I do have one more, if I could.
Go ahead, Roy.
Item. I mentioned earlier the workload. So I think it's appropriate that my next item, we do need to add a special meeting in order to, we do have a backlog of development projects that are waiting to come before you. However, we don't have the capacity right now in the next month for this to address the backlog. So we do need, we would like to ask the commission for, if you're open to having a special meeting. We do have some dates. One is May 27th and the other is June 10th. So if you could, if you don't mind, just perhaps dropping me an email, just confirming your availability on those 2 dates. And then at our next meeting, we'll finalize which day would be we'll confirm the meeting date at our next meeting after I get confirmations from all the commissioners.
Roy, what was the second date there? May 10th and May?
May 27th and June 10th.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't think Commissioner, well, she can bring it up during our next meeting. So with that, I'm going to adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
I just got a text from her. Says I just went dark and she doesn't quite know what happened.
I'll reach out to her as well.
Okay. And she can always bring it up our next meeting in 3 weeks. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting for May 6th. And so this meeting is adjourned to the regular Planning Commission meeting of May 6th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.